Hey guys, before we get started with today's show, I have some exciting news to share. Your financial pharmacist is now offering fee-only comprehensive financial planning services led by certified financial planner Tim Baker. We're dedicated to serving pharmacists like you who want something better than the status quo. We offer our clients an honest, education-focused approach that is specifically catered toward handling the high-income, student loan-laden, demanding career track of you, the pharmacists we serve. Our goal is simple: to get you from thinking, I don't know exactly what to do with my money, but I know I need to do something, to confidently saying, I know exactly what I need to do month in and month out to get out of debt, save for retirement, and achieve my financial goals. You can learn more by visiting yfpplanning.com. Again, that's yfpplanning.com.
We are all works in progress our entire lives. And the quicker that you learn that as an entrepreneur or as a new person starting out, you give yourself some grace, you take a breath easier instead of thinking that overnight it's got to be built. And that's coming from someone who thought that overnight it's got to be built.
You're listening to the Your Financial Pharmacist podcast, a show all about inspiring you, the pharmacy professional, on your path towards achieving financial freedom. Hi, I'm Tim Ulbrich, and on today's show, I welcome Allyson Brennan, a hospital clinical pharmacy manager in Nashville, Tennessee, and founder and owner of Emogene & Co. Emogene & Co. is a natural skincare company focusing on effective natural skincare and the science behind purposeful ingredients. We talk about Allyson's background in pharmacy, why and how she started Emogene & Co., why she has had success in such a short period of time, and what lies ahead as she prepares for growth in 2021 and beyond. Allyson, welcome to the show.
Hey, Tim, how are you? Thank you so much for having me.
Really excited to have you. Been looking forward to this interview ever since you and I had met, actually, through Adam Martin, the Fit Pharmacist, and had a chance to learn more about the work that you're doing at Emogene & Company. And really excited to share that story as well as some of your pharmacy background and to expose our listeners to, I think, what has been a very unique career path and obviously some success you've had with the business, and would like to get an inside look into that. And so let's start with your pharmacy career. Tell us about your background in clinical practice and then administration and management since you graduated with your PharmD from the University of Mississippi.
Sure. So my background actually started before I even went to pharmacy school. I originally thought I wanted to go to vet school. I am a avid horse rider. I was a competitive horsewoman growing up, and so I wanted to start and go to vet school. And ultimately, fast forwarding through all of those decision-making pieces of my life, I shadowed a veterinarian. I wanted to be an equine leg surgeon, so that would entail about 16 years of post-undergrad study, a lot of time, a lot of decisions that go into pushing you into a different path, because when times are tough, people might take care of themselves before they take care of their animals ultimately. So I decided against vet school with the veterinarian that I shadowed. She just gave me so much amazing advice. And as I started to look into what I wanted to go into, I knew that a passion for me is really breaking things down. I wouldn't say at that point a molecular structure, but very much like how I built this, but from a very kind of unpiecing things, if that makes sense.
Sure.
So I love chemistry. I'm a total chemistry nerd. So I had heard about pharmacy, right? And so I've been out for 13 years. Back then, pharmacy was a very different ball game. And I heard that, through kind of talking to people that knew about pharmacists, what really it entailed. And I was able to, balance of family life with a career. And so I went for it and was accepted to University of Mississippi Pharmacy School after I completed a undergrad BS degree in psychology with a biology and chemistry minor, and went into pharmacy school at University of Mississippi or Ole Miss. You end up with your PharmD or doctorate as well as another BS degree. So I was ready to go once I got out of pharmacy school. I was looking into residencies because I knew I ultimately wanted to be in clinical practice in a hospital setting. Applied to some residency programs in Nashville, Tennessee, because I had done some undergrad rotations there, but ended up getting an offer from a wonderful hospital, Huntsville Hospital in Huntsville, Alabama. Very large, I believe at that point they were 881 beds. And it was a clinical position without needing the residency. And it was everything I was looking for. So I interviewed, I was accepted. And the next year, they started to require residencies for this because it is so clinically based. And so for me, my career started with no residency in a facility, a large facility, and I started with an ortho and neuro kind of concentration. So I really built that niche of pharmacy and hospital practice for about 3 years there. And then I ended up moving to Nashville and practiced specifically neuroendovascular, neurosurgery, and just neurointensive patients for close to 9 years at Centennial Medical Center in downtown Nashville. From there, I really built a lot of relationships with the providers and physicians that entailed in that specialty. So the neurosurgeons, the neurointensivists, the neurologists. And once I built those relationships, they offered me a just heap of opportunities to build my clinical knowledge as well as build into things that were the building blocks for me to move into administration. So order set development, process improvement, committee sitting, P&T, presentations, just a wonderful group of physicians. And after about 8 years, I was loving clinical practice, but I knew that I was ready to kind of push on. And Centennial, where I was as part of the HCA, Hospital Corporation of America group, it's a large, privately owned corporation that owns hospitals. So there's several sister facilities in Nashville and the Nashville area. And there was a clinical manager position at a smaller sister facility about 11, 12 miles from downtown Nashville. And I knew the director. He actually was a resident under me that I trained him at Centennial. He is a wonderful guy, and he had called me and said, I really think that you're ready for this position. I would love to work with you. And I ultimately went ahead and interviewed, uncertain that it would be a good fit because it was so much smaller. And when I went, I loved the staff. I felt very much at home there. It was what I was looking for because I had become a mother at that point. So it was very much a community feel, and working with that director was a goal of mine because he was a wonderful leader. And so now I've had my 2-year anniversary as the pharmacy clinical manager at a facility. So I manage about 20 pharmacists and elevate the clinical program there to really help them succeed with, their interdisciplinary rounds and their clinical responsibilities within the facility for patient care.
That's great. I appreciate you chronicling the journey. We're going to come back here in a little bit as we dive into the work that you're doing with Emogene and Company, as how that pharmacy management experience and how your pharmacy experience at large has helped you as you've been working to get that company off the ground and now continue to grow that company. Let's start with kind of the basics around Emogene and Company. What is it? Why is it important? And ultimately, what problem is it solving? Because I really believe every business is ultimately trying to solve a problem. So tell us more about the backstory of Emogene.
Absolutely. So for me personally, I was just chugging right along being a pharmacist. And about 2 years ago, I was maybe 37 and a half, 38 years old. And I decided I wanted to start to focus to take a little better care of my skin. I had taken care of my skin in my life, but, you're getting older. And I was like, what can I do that I'm not doing, that is good for my skin? And the interesting thing about this is that this journey is really a full circle of the creativity that I feel like I lost as a kid, and really started focusing more on this logistical math and science, black and white kind of thinking. And I'm really loving this journey because I am at this place in my life where I'm opening up kind of the Pandora's box of creativity, but in a very different way than I ultimately thought I would. So it started for me, honestly, Tim, with a vitamin C serum. Vitamin C serums, for those that don't know, is kind of your ultimate go-to that every female and male should have for antioxidant protection against environmental stressors and to prevent further aging. It's natural. There can be synthetic versions of it, but it's a kind of your go-to for just preventing your aging starting, in their 20s. So I spent about $150 on a vitamin C serum, and I turned it on the back and looked at the label and was like, what am I paying for? Just the chemistry nerd in me came out, and I usually don't do that, which is crazy. And so I turned it on the back, and being a pharmacist with the chemistry and science background that we all have, I was like, well, I don't see ascorbic acid. Like, where is it?
Right.
I did notice an ingredient that looked like, some sort of derivative of that. So I went to Google and I Googled this specific ingredient and found out, that it's a synthetic ester version. So then before I knew it, I had dropped down into a very deep rabbit hole of synthetic versus pure of all ingredients and natural versus synthetic, active versus inactive, and really started to pull apart the skincare game, if you will. I started then, it grew arms. I started into essential fatty acid concentrations and what that looks like for your skin, yada, yada. And so before I knew it, I had tapped into a passion I never knew I had.
Mm-hmm.
When I looked at this vitamin C serum, I was like, I can make that. Like I can make that. And I'm not a real DIYer. So I actually made some and didn't tell anybody and started to apply it to my face. And I would say about 2 weeks later, I had friends that were asking me, what are you doing to your skin? Like something looks different. So I told them I'm making a bootleg vitamin C serum.
Good old compounding labs back, right?
Yes,
from pharmacy school.
I tell you, I tapped into all this knowledge that, you never think comes back. So I started to really appreciate that. They asked me to make some for them. I was not charging anybody. It was just more of, friends sharing with friends. And then ultimately in about November of 2019, I was like, maybe I should try something on the side. Maybe I should try to do this. Now, for understanding a little background on me, I am a very driven person. I am not someone who puts their head down and thinks, well, I'll do a little side project. If I'm going to throw my time into something, I put blinders on and I go. I'm all in. And if you're familiar at all with the Enneagram, or if anyone on that on this podcast that listens is, I am a type 3.
I'm with you there.
I'm okay. Yeah. I'm a 3-2, 3-wing 2, and I am the poster child for a 3, the achiever. And so I really think that learning the Enneagram helped me understand what drove me to this place. So I've never been an entrepreneur. I never, ever, not even for a second, thought about owning my own business, my own pharmacy, let alone a skincare company. So I just went for it. So in January, I went ahead and created the company through an LLC. The name Emogene and Co. speaks to, it pays homage to my grandmother, Emogene. And I am named after her, Allyson Jean, and my daughter is Parker Emogene. And that's where the Co. comes in. But my grandmother was someone who could make something from nothing and had the most amazing skin. And that generation was very much a make it work type and create anything. And for me, I love science. I love chemistry. I love, as a pharmacist, we all know that there's a time and a place for medication and chemicals. But I wanted to really focus on natural ingredients because I think that in the skincare industry, and I'm a baby in this, I think that the skincare industry can be extremely misleading to consumers. And the reason why is that there's a lot of terms and titles that are thrown around without the knowledge behind that. I think that there is a time and a place, like I said, for chemicals. But if you can have things that come from the earth naturally that are extremely effective, I want to focus on that. And that all came into play when I became a mother. What I started with was a vitamin C serum. And I started with a couple of other items that I actually made a stretch mark prevention cream when I was pregnant. And I did a lot of tweaks to it and offered that. And then I offered a body scrub that is amazing for increasing the circulation and the blood to the skin, which creates a different kind of solution for your skin. I'd been making that for 3 years. And just for myself, I offered that. And then I really focused on facial oils and essential fatty acid nutrition for your skin. So here I am almost a year later, and I offer 21 products. And I am offered in 11 locations as wholesale clients. So they're my stockist list. And that includes 3 med spas and a dermatology clinic, which was kind of my moment for really taking this to a level where being taken seriously in a dermatology field and a medical field, that it's a natural product. I have done a little bit over 5,000 individual orders in this time.
Mm-hmm.
And I am still a full-time pharmacist and mom and wife. There's not a lot of sleep in my life right now, but I am so driven by the passion for this. And it ultimately all comes down to I want to offer the ability for people to, number one, age gracefully. Number two, to improve the quality and the nutrition to their skin, because we all take so much advantage of our skin. It's the largest organ that we have. And I want it to be an accessible option for people. I don't think skincare should be a luxury. I don't think that people should not be able to afford to take care of an organ for themselves. And so my price points are at a place where I want people to be able to access that, but feel good about the science that kind of marries the natural skincare for them. So it really boils down to a lot of relationship building with customers. Anything starts out as a family and friend trying your items. And then once they are like, wow, okay, you really have something, they spread by word of mouth. And then word of mouth starts to go to the right people that are the really big word of mouthers,
Yep.
And then ultimately you start to have stores that want to carry you. And it's based off of the fact that it is skincare, which is a very saturated market, but it is natural. Rather than stating it's natural, it is natural, but I get to really flex that pharmacist science arm with it. So that is the solution I wanted to offer. Like I said, it's a saturated market in the skincare industry. I'm learning that also it is an absolutely overpriced industry, but it really comes down to, do you believe and trust what someone is selling you? And I, being a psychology background, I want to develop that trust relationship for people to know that I ultimately have their best interest at heart for what is best for their skin. So that's the solution I wanted to offer. And I hope I do that, and I continue to do that. And I don't want to sacrifice the integrity of the ingredients or the integrity of that brand.
Yeah, and that really resonated, Allyson, when you and I had talked several weeks ago. That really resonated with me as wanting to keep the integrity of the brand, wanting to focus on the natural and pure ingredients, wanting to bring this at a price point that was more affordable. And when I think of the timeline, and I know you mentioned it and you honored it, but I don't want our listeners to gloss over it. 1 year ago, November 2019. If I heard you correctly, kind of idea was coming to be, that was starting to form, but it wasn't until the beginning of 2020 they actually formed the company. And here we are just over 10 months into this journey. You mentioned 21 products, 11 locations, obviously an active e-commerce online, over 5,000 units sold. And so, of course, there's a trajectory here. And my natural next question, which I'm guessing our listeners are thinking as well, is like, break down the operations. Like, how are you doing this? You mentioned starting with the compounding. So are you up late at night at compounding? Do you have a team? Do you have distribution facility? Like, this happens so quickly. So tell us how you've been able to scale up to be able to fulfill those orders while also being an N of one when you started.
An N of one. I'm still an N of one, but I do have maybe 0.25s on the side, and I'm so grateful for those. So for me, my first sale was I formed the LLC and all of the background information you do to form a business in January, and my first sale was January 26th. It started, social media, no website. I had Square, which the majority of people are familiar with. And so it was literal orders coming through email, text, Facebook messaging, or Instagram messaging.
Instagram, yeah.
And then invoicing them to their email, and then they would pay. So it started out really just grassroots. I don't know how much more grassroots you could be. As far as the compounding goes, let's say, for instance, let's speak of this vitamin C serum. Okay, there's 21 products now, but let's just speak to this. So I was starting only making batches of eight at a time. That was it. And I would say now I'm making those in batches of 120. So in this amount of time, I've learned that scale because I was still white knuckling it, really holding those reins of wanting to know that I'm putting out. I mean, everything is made by me, filled by me, packaged by me, labeled by me, heat sealed by me, sold by me. And that's a long process once you reach a certain point in time. So I was really only just, if you will, dog paddling through life. I was making what I needed to fill those orders and then trying to still be a mom and a wife and be
Sure.
a pharmacist manager. So I think at some point, I really had to stop holding on to that control and start to hire the right team around me. But I have a very specific thing I look for in that team. So before I got to that point, it really looked like, let's say, so I create a sterile field at my home in my kitchen. I am still working from my home. This was maybe one closet upstairs in my house that had, the packaging had the wrong ingredients,
Yep.
whatever. And then I would fill the orders literally fresh made on the spot, and I would fill those orders.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say 3 months into that, I was still making the same amount of batches of things, but I was maybe expanding to another closet,
Mm-hmm.
So 9 months in, I am in 6 closets, the entire garage. My dining room is my office per se, where I fill orders.
Mm-hmm.
I have a shipping station in that room, and I have my entire dining room is not even used anymore, other than Emogene and Co. I have complete shelving in the entire room, but I still create this sterile field in the kitchen. And so now the batches are larger. I finally, I've had a lot. I'm so grateful for it. I've had a lot of females that love my products offer the help. I
Mm-hmm.
love what you're doing. I'm so passionate about it. I see that you're passionate about it. Let me help you.
Sure.
And I'm grateful for that. But when you have something like this, you don't want people to do it just because they love the products. You want someone who has the same drive and the same passion
That's
to
right.
grow.
Yep.
And those are very specific qualities that I look for. So for me personally, I have 2 women that are full-time employees one is a pharmacy tech who's a chemotherapy technician I've worked with for 10 years. And the other is a pharmacist who is on staff that I'm her manager at work. She is a workhorse.
Mm-hmm.
These are people that don't know how to stop, but it's not a work that they grovel in. They love it. They're passionate about it. They're positive. Their attention to detail and specifics is second to none. And that was
Mm-hmm.
ultimately why I chose to say yes to them. What they're helping me with now is the chemotherapy technician has 6 products that she now compounds herself. And these do not, the products that I offer, there are some that are just mixed dry ingredients. There are some that are mixed liquid ingredients. And then there's others that are very complicated, where they're a lot more chemistry lab type with an oil phase, water phase, heat phase, cool phase.
Mm-hmm.
She mixes just the solid and the liquid ingredients. So she has 6 products that she makes, and she forms a sterile field in her home and does those, and she heat seals and labels her own, and then she passes them to me. The other employee, she is a mother of 2 and a full-time pharmacist. And so what she does for me is she does the labeling, which is crazy to think, but it's crazy how helpful it is.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So she literally does the labeling, as well as now we have a holiday product with a local company that's a big collaboration, and it's a dry ingredient body scrub. And I taught her that recipe and checked her off like a competency, like I would a pharmacist. And she mixes that now. And we pass off bulk everything in the parking lots before we go into our day jobs. And it used to look like maybe staying up till 10, 11. And now every single night I'm up till 2 o'clock in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm up at 6:30, 6 to 6:30, depending on what time I have to be at the hospital. So I look very tired, but I am so passionate about it. And so I very much have fallen into a routine of what pieces of the night are where I start certain products.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So it's a lot of compounding at the very beginning after putting my daughter to bed. It's compounding if I'm low. I have par sheets, and we have margins, and we have all of the background that you need for those pieces. There's ordering that happens every Friday, and I do all of the ordering, but I focus on their par sheets filled out, and they pass those to me with their timesheets. So yeah, I start with making the products while I'm still kind of fresh.
Mm-hmm.
And then once maybe 11 or 12 rolls around, I've usually finished that compounding, and I've boxed them up for the pharmacist to pass off the next day, that she'll do the labeling. And then I start the admin part of anything that's needed, and I fill orders until usually about 2, and then I go to bed, and I do it all over the next day.
Start over.
Right.
And I love that, Allison, because, I think we all know the hustle that needs to be there. And obviously, as you continue to build, you're going to have an opportunity to bring more folks in, and efficiencies will happen over time. And obviously, as you continue to scale. But when you're getting something off the ground like this, like anybody listening wants to get any company or initiative, side hustle, whatever you want to call this, obviously is much bigger than that. You've got to hustle, you've got to work. And I think when you're that passionate about the mission or the why of what you're doing, I can speak from firsthand experience. I suspect you may feel the same way, that as exhausting as it can be, it doesn't necessarily feel like the type of work that somebody hearing it may think that it feels like, because the mission is so clear on why you're trying to do what you're trying to do. And although you described it, Allison, as being pretty homegrown and still distribution happening out of your home, kudos to you. I think you guys have done an awesome job on the marketing side, on the packaging side. My wife and I purchased and ordered several products before we did this interview. I wanted to get kind of a feel of the experience, and have really enjoyed not only the products, but also kind of seeing a behind the scenes of how you have distributed and packaged and market those. And I think you've done a fantastic job. So especially when you think about this, it's 10 months into the journey. So it's really, really incredible. One of the questions I have, as I think about just purely from the lens of a business owner, is help me break down a little bit further, like what is the differential advantage of Emogene and company? And the reason I ask that is obviously you've had success, but when I hear you talk about like natural and pure, like that marketing of skincare products, well, I certainly don't consider myself an expert in the space, is out there already. And even if it isn't natural or pure, how do you overcome that perception from the consumer that you can separate yourself from those products? So what is a differential advantage for you and your company?
Yeah. First of all, thank you so much for such kind words. That really means a lot to people that start out and second guess themselves, and they go back and forth and they're passionate. And the next minute they're like, am I doing the right thing? So I really appreciate that. But ultimately, Tim, it does fall back on quote unquote, seeing what got you there. It falls back on my pharmacy background. And I'm very thankful. And that's not lost on me, that I would not have the knowledge base to do this and feel good about what I'm putting out and solid and confident of what I'm putting out if I did not have that medicinal chemistry background and the pharmacy background in general. So you're right. The skincare industry, like I said earlier, and like you just alluded to, there's terms that are thrown around that people just don't know what they mean. And as consumers, we are drawn to bright, shiny objects. And in the skincare industry, that looks like wonderful packaging, smells good, feels good, but you fall for, it might state that it's natural and it's actually not natural. And so, I've turned down opportunities for a couple of collaborations with larger medical scale type opportunities of products because it was not going to be a natural product. It was going to be synthetic, because I do stand by wanting to stay with the natural, because it's just a world that is just wide. You can cast a wide net and get some really amazing effective skincare that way. But my goal with this company was to offer natural skincare that's effective, right? So I don't want it to just be something that's another option for people to not know what to do with their skincare. But I want it to be accessible, like I mentioned, but I want it to not be fussy. There's a lot of options for people to take care of their skin, and I don't want people to be confused about how to best take care of their skin. The other piece of this that I'm hoping to offer, and that I really do hang my hat on with my company, is the scientific background of the natural ingredients. Just because they're natural does not mean that they don't have the science behind them. They come from the earth, there's science behind them. So I want people to know that there is legitimate education that is there behind that. And lastly, where I really thrive and where I really know that I thrive and I love it, and I really try to build on this, is to offer that education to people.
Yeah.
So as a small skincare company, which is sometimes labeled as indie skincare companies, I'm not competing with the big guys. It's an opportunity to really dial in with your customer base and with your clientele, and to get personal with them. And the majority of how this business started was, like I said, those messages where people would say, you offer these items, this is my skin type, go. Like, tell me what I need. And for me, it is not about offering every item that I need them to buy. It's really about building that trust. Honestly, it is. So I will have women that will come and say, all right, I want the whole thing. And I will say, first of all, let's talk about your skin type, but let's start with these three things because I don't want you to overwhelm your skin. And then you might not appreciate the products or your skin might not just because it's too much for you at one time. And then let's build on it. So I want you to start with something that works for you and let's go from there. So my goal is to offer, yes, natural skincare, but that has a scientific background that can actually be spoken and related to, but also there's the education behind it. So to grow this company is not just to offer more products. It is to scale. It's a pivotal point that I'm at now that is a new problem that I don't know how to solve because I'm new at this. So, 2021 is a year of scaling. It's a year of working efficiently, moving into a warehouse space, SEO and strategic marketing. I do have a girl that I'm about to bring on for that who is wanting to build a company because she's worked for larger companies. I have a delivery lady that helps me part-time now. So that gives me some time back in my day, but that still offers a customer experience for people to have the deliveries. So yeah, it's really a combination of all of those things, but I want to separate myself apart by the pharmacist piece of it to speak to the actual education of what you're putting on your skin.
Yeah, that's great. And one of the things you said regarding scale in 2021, I mean, it certainly feels like that, sounds like that based on the trajectory you've had for the last 10 months. But as you sort of alluded to, and didn't say directly necessarily, scaling can have its challenges for a variety of reasons. And so the question I have for you here is if we fast forward a year from today, and you're now looking at wrapping up almost the second year of the business, heading into the third year, what does success look like for you and for the business as a whole?
Oh man, it's so funny. I was recently on a podcast and that same question was given to me, but in 5 years. And, I feel like as pharmacists, we're trained when we're students going into trying to get a job or maybe getting into a residency of answering that 5-year question. It is a different ballgame for me now.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, I'm really back to that baby step, of learning something brand new. So ultimately for me, where I find the most passion is the creative piece of this. Now,
Yep.
creativity is going to look different for me. Like I said, I feel like I'm coming full circle to the little girl. I used to be an artist. Like I really love to draw and paint and just be extremely creative in that sense. And there was some point in time, I would say maybe 8 or 9 years old, where something switched for me and I just became more math and science based. But I think what this company is really doing for me personally is opening back up that creative side. Just it looks
Yeah.
that in a different because I can tap into skills that I now have, right? So for a year from now, I need for me to keep my sanity, to be at that place of efficiency. I want to always keep the creative edge. I always want to keep creating. There's a lot of things I've created that just were terrible, that I would never put on the market, but to really better streamline what I'm doing now. And that looks like a lot of things that are not in the lab creating. It looks like very much a business model. So having the right people around me that know that sense that I trust and they really believe in this little company to grow, that's a goal for me in a year. A year from now, a goal is to be in a third space because I've completely outgrown my house.
Yep.
And also to still create that need and want. I mean, I'm tapping into a southern market here with my wholesalers and clinics and my customer base, but it's to continue to scale that. But I am only one person and I only have 24 hours in the day and I need about 30 hours, honestly.
Yeah.
So
Amen. Yeah.
yeah, you understand. And so I really want to learn how to segregate what that looks like for me, but still continue that growth. And it might look like scaling back in pharmacy. I truly, truly hang my hat on pharmacy is what got me here. So I am not that person who is going to be cold turkey leaving pharmacy. No matter how big the company gets, it's a building block, baby step approach for me to step down as this grows, but I want to do it the right way. I don't want to do it too fast. That's very important to me.
And let me prod there a little bit, because one of the things I'm thinking about this as is, I believe one of the challenges, especially of a successful business like this, or for others that maybe have started a side hustle that grows quickly and can quickly outgrow the time that one has available to dedicate to it, is that one of the risks is that it may not reach its full potential, which matters when you've got a really clear purpose and vision, right? Because ultimately, there's only so many hours in the day, and obviously you've got a purpose and a vision and a mission for why you're doing what you're doing. You're not just selling product to sell product. So is that something that hangs on your mind, crosses your mind, that you're not allowing the business to reach its full potential? Or is that an area, as you've kind of alluded to, with bringing the right people around you and putting you in the area that you can provide the most value to the company, that you're going to be able to continue to see and scale that growth while also making sure the vision and the mission stays front and center?
I mean, great question, Tim. Yes, it's on my mind daily.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say it's on my mind daily at this point, because starting out, last year or 2 years ago, when I was literally just a consumer, or even just January taking my first order, I wouldn't have known what to expect. Like I said, didn't go into this without really taking it seriously and growing and pushing. And I'm a hustler. I mean, I am. And that's something that I understand about myself. So I use that to my advantage now, but I also really, really appreciate and thrive on relationships with people. So
Yeah.
those are two things that are not something I do lip service to. They're a part of who I am, and they're a part of what this business is. So when I talk about, am I doing it service? It's funny. My dad, I'm very close to my dad, and my dad is a farmer. And my dad knows how to grow something from the ground. It might not be skincare, but he knows what it looks like to start and then reach a certain level, and then basically at the very end reap what you sow.
Yeah.
For no pun intended, really.
Sure.
So he told me, I would say 7 months in, he said, "You're behind and don't even know it." And that has stuck with me so much, because I was like, oh, he doesn't know what he's talking about. And not even a month after that, it hit a whole new level. A
Mm.
whole new level. So, yeah, it's on my mind every day. I also have to say that I am the type of person, I want to feel like, so there's overwhelmed, right? And there's underwhelmed or bored, and then there's whelmed. And I think that everyone kind of thrives at a different threshold. For me, what I thrive at is overwhelmed for a lot of people, but I want to stay whelmed. Does that make
Yep.
sense? I want to
Absolutely.
stay
Yep.
plugged in. I want to stay alive. I want to stay with my finger on the pulse of what is happening
Mm-hmm.
with this. So to do that, I have to feel like I've got a little bit of control with that, which for a lot of people seriously feels like they are spinning out. It is chaos, and it is chaos. I mean, it's full on chaos.
Controlled chaos, right?
It's controlled chaos, 100%. So I'm starting to get much friendlier with the idea of bringing the right people in and making a team effort at this. And that is the way that, me personally, I think that I can grow this and not feel like what you were saying, where I'm not doing it a service. Because when I'm at work during the day in a hospital, I am 100% there. I am managing people, putting
Absolutely.
out fires, provider and physician conversations, building formularies, and there is no time for all this. So then it is overwhelming when the minute I leave the hospital, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I want it to be something that when I leave, I am managing from that CEO perspective, where I've got the right team underneath me that I trust. They're just as invested as I am, but they are the people that will help that grow. And it's not that they are employees of me. I want them to be a piece of what that is, because I believe in it. So that is where I am now, of looking at 2021. Right now, I'm a baby in a product-based market. It's the holidays, and I'm slightly terrified of what is coming. I've already had double the sales that I had last month at the end of the month. And
Oh,
we're
geez.
on the 11th. Yeah. And I'm
Yeah.
exhausted and I'm overwhelmed for me.
And for our listeners, it's only November 10th when we're recording this.
Right.
So
Yeah. So it's that type 2 fun where it's chaos in the moment and you look back on it, you're like, wow. So I'm extremely proud of it, but I'm trying to stay very aware of what that is. And then, come 2021, I need to take a little bit of time to say, okay, we need to take some time, not, do the logistics of filling orders. Let's gather my team and let's look
Yep.
at what this looks like. And that is what my goal is for January 2021. So then we can approach the new year with the next products we put out are very smart, efficient products. I'm scaling back a couple of products that are my slowest movers, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Hiring that SEO management, the marketing and strategic management, that is just not my forte. Hiring on a couple of other girls that might not be full time, that I truly believe their attention to detail. And then from there, what happens? I did not see this happening with word of mouth in almost a year. So I really am so grateful, but also very optimistic. But I do keep myself in check that if I reach a level that it doesn't grow beyond that, I need to be okay with it. I need to know that I have exceeded what expectations were. And that's a tough thing for me to swallow because I am not someone who celebrates the wins all the time because of how I am
Yep.
programmed. I tend to keep going and going and going, and let's keep building without sacrificing what your ultimate mission was in the first place. So I have to tell myself that. That's a daily mantra that I tell myself. If this reaches a certain pinnacle and it wasn't what you ultimately thought it would be, you need to be okay with it.
And I think Allyson is an outside observer, just kind of talking out loud as I hear you reflect on the journey and from our previous discussion. I think the business potentially gets bigger and more successful than it already has, which is incredible, and further achieves the mission and vision that you have with the business with less of you. And I mean that in the most sincere, kind way of like you have built an incredible thing. But as I hear you talk about scaling up, bringing other people in, and I think putting yourself in the position where the company gets the most value from Allyson that nobody else can do as well. And then those other areas that maybe aren't areas of interest or strength, or that you have other areas of expertise you can bring in. But I think like the relationship piece that certainly feels like a strength here, setting the vision, making sure you've got the right people on the team, on the bus, and, bringing other people in that perhaps Emogene grows and will continue to grow and scale with more even balance of your time. And one of the questions I have for you is, I know one of the daily struggles I have is pouring my time and energy into YFP because I believe its mission is that important, but also balancing the time that I deeply treasure with my wife, Jess, and our 4 boys. And so I suspect many of our listeners may be wondering what I'm wondering here, which is how do you reconcile how you spend your time and work and on the business, and what that may mean for time away from family and friends, whether that's short term or long term?
Oh man, this is the tough one for me. So we all have our strengths and our weaknesses and our opportunities for improvement. Let's leave it at that. This is my opportunity for improvement with just who I am as a person.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say, I'll give you an example. I leave the hospital. It's been a full day of meetings, committee meetings, building things, process improvements, yada, yada. And then my only alone time is a 35-minute drive home. That is it. I am not good at sitting. I'm not good at just listening to the radio, listening to a podcast. I am having business meetings for Emogene and Co. on the phone. I shouldn't say this. I'm texting and driving while I'm trying to, set things up, but I'm still multitasking. And then I get home, I'll pick my daughter up from school, and I will start with that piece of, Allyson needs to take an hour of put the phone away, put all of the productivity away. You need to have a transition time between the first job and the second job, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'll say, okay, that means that I come in, I'll lay things down, I'll unpack the packages, the bulk packages that have come in, I will open them to see what it was today, and that'll be it. Sometimes, more times than not, and I'm very transparent about this, 2 hours later, I'm still in the thick of now I'm processing orders,
Sure.
And what that does is that does take away time from my family. And I have, again, transparently speaking, this year has been a completely rebalancing of what it looks like for our family. I'm not saying it's been easy. And now I do have a support system. My husband is supportive. Now he's the cook for dinner every night, not me. But ultimately, I don't want to be at that frequency. I want to be able to manage that better. And that is the ultimate growth for me. I think, I mean, this is just true. And this is my psychology background speaking. We are all works in progress our entire lives. And
Absolutely.
the quicker that you learn that as an entrepreneur or as a new person starting out, you give yourself some grace, you take a breath easier
Amen.
instead of thinking that overnight it's got to be built. And that's coming from someone who thought that overnight it's got to be built.
Yeah.
I don't take the baby steps easily, but I know for my sanity and for the quality of life and for me ultimately to build a business, I have to learn that. That is a muscle I'm learning to flex and to build. So you have to start somewhere and you have to decide what it looks like and then block out all the other noise, because the noise is what will get you off the path. The noise is what overwhelms you and makes you stop before you've started. And I've been there. So the balancing of the family life is something that is a daily struggle and on my mind. I'm getting better at it. And it's because I know myself well enough now. I know myself well enough now that someone has to physically remove the phone from my hand. I know
Yeah.
myself well enough now that someone has to physically take me away for me to vacate. I don't do staycations. I don't do long weekends. I don't do any of that. That is not who I am, and I accept it.
The business is right there. Yeah.
The business is there. I accept it. For me,
Yeah.
my husband and I were huge travelers before we had our daughter, and now with COVID, it's a little difficult. But for me to
Sure.
truly vacate, to let go of everything, to help reset your mind, because we need that, I have to be gone. It's got to be a certain type of trip that still speaks to me needing to be active, but I cannot tap into the things that drain you because you're wanting to build them. So I think you've got to know how you're programmed and how you're built, and you have to just start somewhere and block out noise.
And that's fantastic. And I love the self-reflection there, the self-awareness. What you said really, really resonates with me. And I think too, just giving yourself permission, forgiveness, where you're not going to get it right. It's a lifelong, I believe as well, it's a lifelong journey. And there's going to be stumbles along the way. And I think that's part of the process. And having those around you that can help keep you accountable and being willing to admit those areas where, input and help would be valuable. So as we wrap up here, Allyson, where can our listeners go to learn more about you and the work that you're doing?
Sure. So for me, I have a website that's available. It's www.emogeneandco. That's all one word.com. And Emogene is interesting. It's spelled Emogene. It's an old school spelling of the name. A lot of people are not used to. Again, it pays homage to my grandmother. So emogeneandco.com is the website. On Instagram, I am 2 underscores together, Emogene and Co, and then 2 underscores at the end. And then on Facebook, I'm Emogene and Co. So I am tapped into those resources all day, every day, if you can imagine from the podcast. And then email address, you can sign up for a subscriber and you can contact me directly through the website.
Great stuff. And we will link to all of those in the show notes. And Allyson, this has been fantastic. When I had first learned of the work that you're doing, I got really excited of kind of the intersection of pharmacy administration, management, and entrepreneurship. And we both have some experiences in those areas. And I suspected this would be a fantastic story to share. And it certainly has. So thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show. I wish you the best of luck and success with the work that you're doing. And we'll be touching base in the future to see how things are going.
Oh, it's an honor, Tim. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.